Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth is around the corner. It's almost out, but the full set is spoiled for our viewing. And a lot of people are wondering, how is this going to affect the format that I play, whether it be the next big commander staple or the secret sleeper that breaks open the Pauper format. Today, I wanted to talk about 3 cards that I think will change the modern format. And although Tales of Middle-earth may not be a master set, which is probably a good thing, we're not exactly getting Renin 6 out of this set. I think we're getting some fantastic support cards and some cards that actually will probably bring about brand new archetypes or fresh archetypes and just provide some good options in the long term for the modern format. Now, I'm only going to go over 3 cards, so I really need you to let me know what you think are fantastic cards for the modern format, what cards I missed. There are a lot of other options out there, but these are the ones that I'm keeping my biased eye out for. You gotta let me know what you're looking out for. Now we're gonna start things off very simply at number 3. We have Stern Scolding, 1 blue for an instant counter target creature spell with power toughness 2 or less. Now the big limiting factor of this card, let's be honest, is the fact that it only counters creature spells, right? So it's not going to counter the non-creature variant, which is the more common option. But again, it does what it does really well. The power toughness 2 or less is actually almost, I would say, more than the majority of the creatures in the modern format. You'd be surprised at what this thing can hit. So let's go through some of the options. We got Azusa out of the Anew the Titan deck. So you even have some other cards in the Anew the Titan deck that this hits, but this is a very good option at 1 or 2 toughness and power. You have Solitude at 2 toughness that it's going to be able to counter. Imagine if they evoke it, they lose the card, you get to counter it with just 1 blue. Fantastic. You have Yawgmoth. This is such good value. Yawgmoth at 2 power is such good value for Stern Scolding. Literally, like, the majority of the Yawgmoth deck, I want to point out, like the green creature, like all of them get countered by Stern Scolding. It's literally an A+ counter spell to bring in against this deck, by the way. So yes, they might have Cavern of Souls. Yes, they might bring in stuff another way. They might have collected companies, but again, Stern Scolding, powerhouse of a card against this deck specifically. The last one, Ragavan, red card, literally the menace of the format. For people have been calling for bans. I think everyone's just accepted that this is a fine, fair card at this point, but countering it in both ways is going to be fantastic. You get it countered at its dash, whether it's regular cost, whatever it might be, it's fantastic. And also, the most powerful card in the modern format, Stern Scolding effects, Ruin Crab. That's right, the menace, the blue 0/3 landfall menace of the format. Stern Scolding is able to stop with that measly 0 power. But bringing ourselves back to reality, not only is the artwork for this card amazing, the cost is amazing, and the flavor text full of a fantastic scene out of the Lord of the Rings series. Stern Scolding is going to be a great option for any blue deck out there. And again, there's certain decks where it's just going to completely hose, and it's not exactly going to be a main board option, but that's the whole point. Sets don't need to break open an eternal format every single time. It's nice when it provides options. Now, going into number 2, I think we have an option that really will only affect one deck, but it'll make that deck a lot better, in my opinion. It's a fantastic option in Forge Anew, 1 white and 2 colorless mana for an enchantment. When Forge Anew enters the battlefield, return target equipment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. As long as it's your turn, you may activate equip abilities at any time you would cast an instant, and you may pay 0 rather than the equip cost of the first equip ability you activate during each of your turns. So there's a little bit of commander wording in there, but each of these 3 modes are so relevant. And we're talking about equipment here. It's white. We're talking about the Boros Hammer deck or the Azorius Hammer deck, or just the white X hammer decks. Colossus Hammer and this card are going to be best friends. Destroyed Equipments and this card are going to be best friends, and just even ones on the battlefield are going to get such great value out of this. The abilities on it are very reminiscent of some of the already integral pieces like Pure Steel Paladin, the Metalcraft giving it, equip 0 for all other artifacts out there, equipment out there. This allows you to do that as well for the first ability, so it's kind of like a Pure Steel plus, like it's another version of it. And then the utility of it is so reminiscent of Sigarda's Aid. You have flash on your equipment spells, and when your equipment enters the battlefield, you can automatically equip it onto a creature. But this provides the kind of added utility of resurrecting equipment and equipping at instant speed, not just casting, right? So this has that, this does this in a pseudo way where you cast the instant and then it kind of attaches itself, but this literally allows you to equip at instant speed. Forge Anew does. Now, even alongside that, the Forge Anew's primary ability that I want to look at is just when it enters the battlefield, you can return target equipment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Now, there are niche cases where, you know, especially being a mill player myself, you can mill over some of their equipment cards. Now I have something like Forge Anew to worry about where this enters the battlefield and reanimates something like a Cauldron Complete. This is a very hard spell to deal with. The majority of the time, it's just going to stay on the battlefield or get exiled. Very rarely does it enter the graveyard, but being able to reanimate something like this, thanks to Forge Anew, I'm really concerned. It's something I always have to play around, because if I've already dealt with this and I have to re-deal with this, problematic. And a lot of times you're somehow able to, you know, destroy equipment, destroy artifact, but then getting that reanimation is so key. And then even when you're doing attacks, doing a little bit of combat, Matt, let's back up. Maybe with Sigarda's aid, you've already, you know, back up here, you play the Colossal Hammer, you put it on a creature, you go in for an attack, you know, you have the Forge Anew out, you're then going to be able to, if, you know, based on how your opponent's blocking, take the Forge Anew, put it on another creature. Let's say that creature has flying. You've already gone over your opponent's creatures past the blocking phase where they cannot block that creature. Then you use Forge Anew's last ability, equip at instant speed, move the Colossus Hammer over, you're getting in free attacks. That's a great way for an Ornithopter to go in at 0, but then re-equip with the Colossus Hammer at instant speed. It gives you great combat tricks. Again, very, very, very much just the Boros Hammer decks, the Azorius Hammer decks, whatever it might be, but very strong card for that. Now at 3, it is a high cost. At an enchantment, it's not a common type for this deck to really use. I would say the deck is relatively artifact and equipment heavy. Notably, the card is really cool. I really doubt we will see anything less than 2 copies out of these decks from this card. The card slaps, it's great, provides a great amount of redundancy. Now, the last card that I want to talk about, I think will probably create a whole new archetype, if not revitalize one of the age-old archetypes in Modern, and just bring back to prominence a card that we haven't seen around in Modern too much. And we'll talk about that in a second. At number 1, I have a card called Rosie, Cotton of South Lane. Now, this has been kind of the talk of the town, but for those you unaware, let's read through it. So 1 white and 2 for Rosie, Cotton of South Lane, a legendary creature, halfling peasant. When Rosie, Cotton of South Lane enters the battlefield, create a food token. Whenever you create a food token, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control other than Rosie, and it's a 1/1. Now, this essentially combos infinitely with Scurry Oak. So the way this works is when Scurry Oak gets one or more 1/1 counters, you create a scroll token. Well, when you create a token, you put a 1/1 counter on target creature. So now you're starting to see where this goes. You create an infinitely large Scurry Oak, and then you create an infinite amount of wide board. So it's really great for going tall, going wide, whatever it is. You have all these creatures, you have all these infinite triggers. The problem is you would need something like haste. So how would we do this at instant speed? Why would we want to pass back to your opponent? Well, this is where that bringing back that age-old Modern comes into play. And we have something like Collected Company to make things easy for us. Now, what's fantastic about old Scurry Oak combos, and Seth from MTG Goldfish talks about it, where he's tried something like Scurry Oak before, you weren't able to do this with a 3 or less CMC card. But now Collected Company, Rosie, and Scurry Oak are converted mana cost 3. So at the end of your turn, you're going to be able to float for Collected Company, get both of these cards out, or heck, any one of the other plethora of common combo cards that exist in these colors. This could be a great way for Collected Company to make a huge comeback, to have a Bant combo deck, to have a green-white combo deck re-exist, come back into the Modern format. Now, obviously, it's going to be centered around Collected Company. That is going to create the fragile nature of the deck. But infinite combos in general are powerful, and they're definitely things to still consider. Now, even just in terms of value, the Band Company shell already exists in Modern. You have powerful cards like Knight of the Reliquary getting really large, creating some ETBs, tutoring for value lands, whatever it might be. So you have that aspect of the Coco decks. You also have the value aspect. With the Band Company deck, you have Soul Herder. When a creature is exiled from the battlefield, the 1/1 counter at the beginning of your end step, you may exile another creature you control and bring it back. So you're blinking right? So you're reusing some of the ETBs that you already have in the Scurry Oak, in the Rosie, whatever it might be. So the shell exists. You just slot it in, you get your value pieces in there, and the deck runs itself. And I think that's the great part about it. It's a revitalization. This set is helping to revitalize and provide more options to decks that already exist in Modern, which is probably the best thing about it. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We don't need power level scaling of cards that already exist. We just need to provide power to the decks that are already out there. And hopefully, like this, decks that used to exist and exist in the periphery, but now we're going to see a huge swing of play because of the new options that they have. Now that's it from me in terms of what I think is going to change the Modern format or affect it a little bit from Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth. Let me know what you think of the cards I talked about. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I didn't list off all the cards that are going to affect Modern. There definitely are other options out there that are potentially more powerful, and I need to hear about that from you. What did I miss in my list? What are some of the points I missed? And what cards do you think actually deserve to be in the top 3 from this set? Like and comment and subscribe if you want to see more talking head videos like this. I'm more than happy to do them. Happy planeswalking in Middle-earth.